In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome to After the Game. I'm your host, Josh Baker, along with my trusty sidekick, the Hall of Famer, Coach Kevin Sullivan. Coach, today we got another local guy coming in, been around the town a little while, just told us he's been coaching for 20-plus years. So I want to welcome Coach Matt Toblin from the Bolles Bulldogs to the show. Coach, how we doing?
I'm really good. I'm really glad to be here and talk a little bit about high school sports in the area and obviously my journey from a young pup to where I am today.
Yeah, so local guy, graduated from Mandarin High School, football player in high school, right? Any other sports or just mainly football guy?
So I wrestled. I wanted to play basketball. I wanted to play basketball. I played basketball like the JCA and stuff like that. And then when we got to high school, it was like it's not really your sport anymore. And so I wrestled. And so freshman year, wrestled 119 and got a couple matches on varsity wrestle off and got a couple matches. And then for some reason, I thought, well, if I'm going to play college football, I need to gain weight. I need to gain weight. I'm a linebacker. I'm going to need to gain weight. And then God stalled me at 5'8",
I know that feeling.
160. And so I probably should have spent some more time in wrestling. But I for just football after that freshman year of wrestling.
Yeah. And from what I've been told, I mean, you were born to be a coach, right? Coach on the field. Talked to a couple guys that grew up with you, played with you. No offense, but not the most talented guy, but knew where the ball was going on every play.
No, and I loved the game. I love the idea of it. I love studying. I love watching film. I'm super thankful for all the coaches along the way. Obviously, Coach Medlock, my first 3 years, and then Coach Waters was the defensive coordinator when I first got there. And then Craig, obviously, when he came in my senior year. And learning as much as I could about the game and being really super interested in it. And that, I think everybody else came to a realization that I was going to be a coach sooner than I did. I really thought I was going to, I had a chance to play and I was going to be able to, there was a role for me. I was going to be able to play. And that, I think my senior year, we were playing Lake City, Columbia. And, we'd played them for years. And as a player, I had a really good bead on what they were doing, just from a formational standpoint and guards and tells. And so I think, we get into Monday and I tell Coach Howard, hey, I know what they're going to run. And so we sit and we talk and I'm like, look, if you just let me go. He goes, all right, Toblin, we're going to work on this. I'll have something for you tomorrow. And so we have this player on our team named Larry McGriff, who is one of the best players, that I've ever played with. So in my mind, I'm the one who knows where the ball's going. You're going to let me direct traffic. Let me get there so I can make, 30 tackles in a game. He says, all right, Toblin, this is what you're going to do. When you know what it is, you're going to tell Larry where the ball is going. You're going to go stand on the tight end and make sure he doesn't block Larry, and then Larry's going to have 30 tackles. And Larry McGriff was an unbelievable football player, and it was good coaching on his part. Yeah. We say KYP, know your personnel.
Right.
And that was the moment where I realized, look, this is not. I'm probably going to use this to help other people excel. And that he was a good football player in his own right. But that was probably my moment of clarity where my role probably belonged.
And so you got right into it, right, while you were in college?
Yeah, actually. So that's another decent story. I feel bad. I don't want to embarrass anyone by telling this one, but
you don't have to use names.
Part of the deal. So Coach Howard actually let me coach that spring. He let me coach my senior year. Let me coach that spring. And we had brought on some other members of the staff, and as a high school senior, I was probably more I was probably more brash than I should have been, and so I was not a good coach yet. I knew a lot of ball, but I was not a good coach yet, and I ran into an issue with another coach, and I was wrong. I was right on the job that was supposed to be done, but I was wrong in the way that I went about my business, and I didn't know how to do that yet. And then I actually got into it with a player, and got punched by one of the running backs. I was defending my guy. My guy went through and lit up the running back, and the other kid got up and was mad. And I told him, like, look, just because you got stuck doesn't mean you get up and throw a hissy fit. And then I'd played with him a year before, right. And he was like, "You're not a coach." Like, right. and so I knew there was a lot more to it than just knowing ball. And I think that first year, like getting into it, being like, "Hey, look, I got a lot to learn on how to be a coach, not just memorizing ball plays." Right. But I did. I was super fortunate. Coach Howard let me jump right in, and then I did kind of step away from that. I coached with them for a little bit, and then stepped away from that because I needed to grow up and I needed separation from those guys.
And so you went to Florida State, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And ended up joining the staff there.
So I. Joining the staff. Right. I don't know if we can see
it's great on the resume, right?
Joining the staff. So, Coach Howard, I'm going to talk a lot about him along the way because obviously he played a huge role in this. So Coach Howard, before I went off, he told me, like, look, this is your job. Your job is to make yourself indispensable. And I'm thinking that means ball. And he goes, no. He goes, make the coffee, do the copies. Learn the stuff on the computer. And then what ends up happening is you make yourself indispensable because you became coffee guy. Now that's not the role you want, but you became coffee guy. Now what you want is no one else gets to make the coffee. Like that's your job. So when you're not there, then they realize
you're not there.
Where's Toblin?
Right.
Where's Toblin? Like nobody else
knows.
Nobody else knows how to use this. Like nobody else knows how to do that formula or run this. And so you need to make yourself indispensable. Whatever the role is, there's no small jobs in show business. Whatever the role is, excel at it. Make that your job. No one else does it as well as you, so that they realize that you're gone. So my job was I was dip guy. Like my job was dip guy. Like I would run to the store and I had everyone's order and I'd come back with everybody's dip and I'd bring them to the table. And that's really what my first year of coaching was. It was that and arts and crafts. Right. It was that and arts and crafts. Like I'd go get I'd run errands, random errands. And then I was arts and crafts guy in that, we didn't have all the computer stuff that we had back then, back in the olden days. And so we would make like goal boards and I'd have to go through all the media guides and I'd go through, we'd play Virginia's media guide and I'm cutting out, pictures.
That was cut and paste, right?
Yeah.
That's the cut and paste now.
And I'm cutting out the pictures of their DBs and making goal boards and stuff like that. And so, I was a lot of those. And at some point, I was working with Jeff Bowden. He let me, do more with some of the special teams groups I don't know that I coached much, but I was.
You learned a lot.
I learned a lot, and watching other people, and I think it definitely, you learn each step along the way. You learn, and I think Mark Richt at one point, because I came in there, and every coach has this moment, I think. And the earlier you learn it, the better. And I Coach Sullivan, I 100% will jump on. So I'm again brash. I know ball. I love it. All that stuff. And then Florida State, honestly, in that time era was not schematically trying to be the top. Like they weren't.
Right.
And at some point it came up hey, why don't we do that? And basically Mark Richt was like, look, we're not gonna confuse and slow down our players. Like we went out and we've got really good players and we're gonna let them be really good players and I can pound my chest and call a bunch of really cool ball plays and install a bunch of stuff and make it about me. But instead, we're gonna let our kids showcase how good they really are. And so not being so consumed with showing how smart you are that you get in your player's way. And that was his big thing. Let's get out of their way. And I think that there's room for that. There's definitely room where you need to make sure that you're schematically giving your kids every chance. But there's a line where you cross, any chef, hey, look, subtract. Right. Don't make it so complicated. Just showing off how good you are.
Right.
And so I think that's probably the weirdest lesson I learned from Mark Richt, because you would think in college ball it's going to be this amazing stuff, and actually it was look, how simple can we make it?
Well, the question I have is there was two guys that work with you, Tidwell and Bubba.
Yeah.
So I've heard some of these stories from back in the day. So I'm sure you were doing a lot more of the work than those two guys were doing.
No, not really. Like Tidwell, Bubba, those guys. So they were there before me,
Right?
Tidwell and Bubba, and they showed. I learned a lot from both of them.
Yeah.
I did. I learned a lot from both of them. Bubba was amazing coming in. He knew so much about the defense and what they were doing. Tidwell was so much more advanced in terms of being in there with Lily and knowing kind of the project of what's going on. And there were some good days and there were some bad days there. There were some good days and bad days. Worst days. Worst day ever. And I tell everybody this. I have two bad ones, but worst days ever. And then in coaching, like, it's not all going to be good, and you got to celebrate the good and the bad. But the worst day ever was we had a scrimmage in the stadium, and for whatever reason, Bobby Bowden was out of town. He was touring World War II sites or something, but he was out of town. And on that staff, like, it was offense versus defense.
Right.
Like Mickey Andrews and Mark Rick, it was offense versus defense. Sneak into the room, get their install schedules. Like, it was in spring. We were getting after each other. And so there's no Bobby there to settle it down. And for some reason, someone made a mistake. The refs weren't there either. And so it was my job to ref.
Oh no.
It was my job to ref. And no matter what you do, everyone is like after you, no matter what you do. And so I'm the back judge or whatever, and like I'm getting yelled at on every single play. And I will say that, like, if the refs ask you today, like, hey, who's like, I'm rough on them, but I let them. But like I'm always pulling punches. Like, I'm always like, look, I know how hard your job is, because I sat there one time where there was no one to check them, and like that was probably my least favorite day in the history of coaching at Florida State. And then the other one was, this is that my players know this one because we talk about it, but I can't throw at all. Like, that's not my deal. Well, Coach Howard got me the job, and I interviewed with Jeff Bowden to get the job, and he was like, hey, you could throw, right? And I go, yeah, I can throw. Yeah, I can throw. Well, I need someone who can throw pat and goes and throw some warm-up drills and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I got you. And so Clayton Thompson, who played quarterback at Mandarin, was in my neighborhood, and me and him would go out, and I'd try to learn how to throw, and like it wasn't going to happen. Now, everybody there knew, like, clearly I can't throw really well. For some reason, Anquan Bolden thought that I was just throwing bad balls to him.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he thought I was just throwing bad balls to him. And he was a great high school quarterback.
Great,
tremendous.
So there would be times where we'd throw pat and goes, and like I'd throw him a bad ball, and he'd get upset, and he would throw a laser back at me. And I would have to, like, I'm not going to not try to catch it or anything like that. So I'm trying to catch him and throwing back in, and he would just he got so upset with me about that. And I was like, look, and at some point Jeff got mad at me, and we had to like pull the jugs machine out and start using those for bat and goes, because I lied to him about being able to throw. But it was an awesome experience, and again, you'll learn a lot about kind of what's important and what.
And you come out of there feeling like, all right, here I am, right? Career time now, ready to go chase the coaching dream, and coaching dream gets started where?
So I actually, when I left, and I think this is a lesson for everyone, like, and this is one of the ones, again, we share with our players. So I didn't know when I left Florida State if I wanted to coach. I loved ball, but I didn't know if I wanted to coach. And so I actually, I looked at going to the FBI and other things that had intrigued me, but I didn't really want to do more school. I came back home, and I got I started substitute teaching. Substitute teaching, we were making 20-something bucks an hour, and I had friends in finance and stuff like that were intern. They weren't making it. I was making more money than they were. Mm-hmm. And so I started substitute teaching, and I was just picking up random jobs, and I got a call asking, so I took AP US History and AP Psychology in high school, and I got a call from Stanton College Prep that they were looking for someone to take over an AP US and an AP Psych for a teacher on maternity leave. So I took it, and I started teaching, and Freddie Stevens was at Stanton at the time.
Right. Yep.
And I said, like, look, while I'm here, I'd like to coach. And so I taught those classes and coached with him, and had every intention of returning. I loved teaching there. Freddie was awesome and like loved and cared about kids, and we weren't going to be very good,
Right.
but like I loved the way that he kind of interacted with the kids and the role that he had, and so I was planning on staying there. Was asked to stay, and that was my plan. And one day at practice, we're trying to we're going over punt. And I'm trying to explain to the kids, like, you don't got to pick a fight at the line of scrimmage. You need to give a little bit of ground. Like, we're trying to form a pocket. And, like, it's not offensive linemen, and they're confused. They don't get it. And I'm trying to explain it. One of the kids looks at me, and he goes, "You mean like an upside-down parabola?" And I go, I mean, I don't have no idea what the kid is talking about. I go, "Yes." And then they all go, "Oh, can we do it?" And so at that moment, then I started calling my coaching buddies, like, I can't stay here. I need to go somewhere else.
Those kids are a lot smarter than
Yes,
you.
they were a lot smarter than me. And so I left there and went to Orange Park. And Joe Conroy, who coached me in high school, got me introduced to Ron McCrone and the Chippolettis. And there was a lot of very fortunate to be around a lot of really good coaches. But like the lesson is like at each one of these stops that we talk about along the way, like you're going to be like, you moved around a lot when you were younger. And it's because I was looking for what was going to make me happy. And that and this is not just football, this is every walk of life. Like I was chasing happy, and I thought like there enough, surely there's a place where we're going to win enough that I'll be happy. Like if I just do this or we get this happen, or if I'm just around good coach, this. And ultimately, like it took me multiple years before I got to like, look, there's no amount of wins that's going to fill this hole. Like that's not where it's going to come from. Because I wanted to quit after my first 3 to 4 years of coaching. I was like, all right, that's it, I'm done. Like this, I'm not good at this. I'm miserable. I want to move on to something else. And that at some point at Clay, I had to give a speech to a Rotary Club, and I'm sure we'll get there chronologically, but I had to give a speech to a Rotary Club where we went through like what we do. We had just lost in the playoffs and like what we do, and really at that, writing that and explaining what a coach does and part of a kid's life, and the role that we can play and the impact that we can have, and the number of people that are still a part of our lives, that are circulating around our lives, and really that's where the joy has to come from. Right. And that when I changed my viewpoint on what my job is as a coach, then I was like, okay, I can do this forever. That if I hadn't done that, I would have got out. I would have got out at some point.
Yeah. Well, and you say that you had to learn what it was truly about to you, right? What your calling was, so to speak. How much of that did Craig Howard? How much influence did Craig? Because that's the kind of the point we just skipped right there, right? Yeah. You kind of go from bouncing around to I'm going back home. I'm with Craig. I'm going to Nice. And then you stayed under his wing for quite a while before you broke out on your own.
So I think that's two things. I think number one, like it feels right. It feels like home. And that I think, again, going through like my immaturity, his way was the right way to me. Mm-hmm. His way was the right way. And different was wrong. And so early on, I struggled with other because different felt wrong. The one thing that I needed to find that we're able to do now is hey, look, what we do here is like we are part of kids' lives. Like we're part of kids' lives, and the idea that winning is a byproduct of helping kids become the best version of themselves. And I know that that's a catchphrase and it's a slogan, but like every time I've got out of alignment and made winning first, I was miserable. Whether it's because I was on a staff where winning was first, or because of pressure, I made winning first. But any time that we got out of alignment and winning became the important thing, like that's the way to break down. And that's what Craig was about. 100% Coach Howard focused on the impact that you can have on kids' lives, and the winning is a byproduct. And that learning that from him and understanding it wasn't just the Howardisms and all that stuff that made it. It was like the alignment of the program and what we really are supposed to be doing.
Did you feel that if you ventured from that, it was sort of like not believing my mentor, my guy, and if I venture away, or was it a maturity thing where I've been around this guy and now, oh, okay, I start to understand?
Yeah, I think it's a maturity thing. Yeah. Like me understanding what it was. Like what is it? What was the secret sauce?
Right.
You know? And I think that's the deal with Coach Howard, is that it's all going on. You just don't know what it is. There's secret sauce, and this is amazing. This is awesome. But putting your finger on exactly what it is that's causing it. That living through those 6 years at Nice, unbelievable run with tons of amazing coaches and players, and trying to summarize what the secret sauce was. And I think, again, like in retrospect, going back and really understanding what was the magic of Craig Howard. What was the magic? And I think there's tons of coaches, I just didn't have them.
Yes.
There's tons of coaches that have that magic about them, but I think that is the thing. And I would say that 100%, like if you were to rank, the impact of Craig Howard or Joey Wiles or anyone,
right?
Like younger coaches, people don't understand. They would be like, "Oh, it's the run and shoot, or it's
not the system.
It's the quarters,
It's the
this,
person.
it's that." No, that is not. That's not the magic.
Right.
That's not the magic.
Again, it's the person, not the system.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a timeout. More with Coach Toblin when we come back on After the Game.
More on the coaching journey of Matt Toblin and his return to Northeast Florida, plus the difficult decision to leave Ponte Vedra and take the head coaching job at Bolles. That's next on After the Game.
Baker Sports is local sports. Uniforms from Pop Warner and Little League to travel ball, high school, and college. They make you look good. They help you play good. Baker Sports has been helping families make memories that will last a lifetime with their Baker's Buckets. We've got a lot of these filled with baseballs and softballs in the garage. I've been throwing batting practice to Ty and Kaylee for years, and also sit on the Baker's Bucket, catching Kaylee while she practices or pitching. Yeah! Baker Sports is homegrown, and a lot of employees that used to play on local ball fields now work for Baker Sports, now helping you look good, play good, and make memories of your own. Visit Bakersport.com to see what Baker Sports can do for you. Custom apparel, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, embroidery, screen printing, and more. Baker Sports is local sports from Jacksonville to anywhere in the Southeast. Bakersport.com. In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome back to After the Game, here today with our guest, Coach Matt Toblin from the Bolles School. All right, Coach, we kind of got you up in the chronological order to you're at Nice with Coach Howard. All right, Coach Howard leaves. You stay there. Now he heads to Southern Oregon. What went into the decision-making there to go with him?
So a lot of it was not football related. So I was, I'm at Nice with him. He leaves to go to Lake City. I end up going to Clay High, and I'm the head coach at Clay High. And I've got an unbelievable staff. Oakstra's with me. Wolf is with me. Like I've got Nettles is coaching O-line. Stillano's the defensive coordinator. Like it's an unbelievable group. We've got great kids.
Oh, so I think I got out of order there. I did not realize that Clay was before you went to Oregon.
Yeah, Clay's before Oregon. So,
right,
so I'm at Nice, and they, we go through the run, and Jim Reap decides to step down, and I'm not sure who to give credit to for pushing my name in. I don't know if it was Reap or if it was Cowgill or who. I don't know who did it. But I got an interview with Pete McCabe and the group at Clay. And
good dude, Pete McCabe, good dude.
I texted him. So we had a gratitude day where we're teaching our kids like how to express gratitude, and because it's an awkward thing for kids.
For 16, 17, 18-year-old boys. Yeah.
And so we talked to them about doing it, and so I participated, and I sent one to Pete, because he awesome, huge part of giving me a chance, but also part of that growing up and understanding what your real role is here. And that, so I go to Clay as the head coach, 30 years old, and that surround myself with a bunch of 30-year-olds.
With a bunch of ball coaches.
And really good ball coaches, though. I mean, really,
yeah, great staff when you look back on it.
Unbelievably lucky, that there's just like, that everything just kind of fits together. But like Ryan Wolf,
right.
Jay Stillano, Josh Hoekstra, Nettles, Jared Moses, like There were people already there at Clay
Right.
that we were able to keep on. Keller, who, I mean, it was a really, really, really lucky fit for me. And that we actually started the career like I think 0-4, started the career on 3-0-4, and then went on a run. And then the next year had another really good year. And you know, we talk about it all the time, like could have stayed there for a really, really, really long time. And I think it wasn't the ball. It wasn't the ball. It wasn't head coaching. It wasn't any of those things. But I was, you know, I'm sitting there now at 32. To be honest with you, and I'm single. And like we're working so many hours. If you're not a waitress or a bartender, I probably didn't see, or a teacher at the school, like I did not see anyone that I could even consider dating,
Right. Thanks.
because of all of our time there. Like I was ball. Like that's what I was ball. And so at that point in my life, it was like, look, if I'm going to be ball, then might as well. And I talked to a lot of college coaches at the time. And they're like, yeah, go. You know, you got offered a full-time spot at Southern Oregon where you're going to make okay money and you're going to get to recruit your position and be the defensive coordinator. And you go there for a couple of years and then you start working your connections and you move, because I knew a bunch of people on the East Coast, and you're going to move every 3 to 4 years and work your way up and be a college coach.
Right.
And so, and at that time that appealed to me, you know, like, look, if this is the life I'm going to live, then let's do it.
And you're 32, single, so if you're going to do it, you do it. And if it doesn't work or you decide that's not for you, it's easier to come back.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's what Pete said. Look, you can always come back.
Right.
Like you'd always come back. Like you're going to come back to the area. You'll find a high school job. They're always going to need teachers, because I take pride on being a pretty good teacher. Like they're always going to need. You can always come back. This is your chance to go take the risk and go do it. So go do it. And we had went out there, and obviously there's a comfortability, being out there with Coach Howard as the head coach there. And we went out there, and it was an awesome experience. And I could have seen myself stay out there and bounce around. And actually I got to a moment where it was decision time. So long story short, playing intramural basketball with the college kids.
You got to play your basketball, see?
So that's what happens. Like you are like, because in college they're more like your younger brothers.
Right.
I'm 32 years old. Some of them are 22. I'm not their dad. I'm their older brother. So we're playing intramural basketball together, and we got some on our team, and like one of our tight ends decides to rotate over and take a charge in intramural basketball, and I end up tearing my ACL, MCL, PCL, meniscus. It's pointing sideways. Kids are like taking pictures of me like laying on the ground waiting for the ambulance to show up. And my wife, well, my now wife, Kaylee was a volleyball coach at Southern Oregon, and we had talked a little bit because we were both running the weight room early in the morning, and she came over and basically started like taking care of me. And lucky for me, the Nightingale effect took place, and she she felt sorry for her patient. And I got a call because I had put out feelers that I was looking to move up, and I got a call from FIU. At the time, Cristobal was the head coach. Popovich was my connection. Yep. He was the DB coach. Coach Orlando was the DC at the time. Mm-hmm. And so those guys all go on different places and spread around. And I got offered a chance to be the defensive backs GA there. And that, I would have taken it. But like we had gone just far enough down the path with Kaylee that I was like, look, it's not quite enough that I can ask her to move to FIU and with me as a GA and sleep on the floor and, at an apartment and be the dip guy again. Right. But so I stayed. I stayed at Southern Oregon to see how that kind of would finish out. And then we got to the point where we were like, look, like, I don't know that college football was for me anymore. That what I really love about forming a team and the role that we can play in kids' lives doesn't. Mm-hmm. I don't know that exists in college football. And so the opportunity to come back, because like being a great dad is really, really, really important to me. Yep. And so coming back to the area, and that, and so we both moved back. Like, cause she had college offers to coach volleyball all over on the West Coast. All my connections were on the East Coast. So us moving around and making that work didn't make sense. And so we moved back to the area. And I actually coming back, like it's a bad story. So she's I do a bad job of communicating all the things that I have to do within my job. Like she tries, like, hey, we have a calendar, just put everything on the calendar so I know what's going on. Like she didn't know I was coming to here today. Like we're cleaning the house. I'm like, I gotta go. And she goes, where you go? It's like, well, I got that thing with Baker. She's like, you didn't tell me about it. And so we drive across country. We get to my parents' house. We unload the U-Haul. And then I fly back out to Texas to work some like USA football thing. So she's at my parents' house. She's chilling by herself. And I fly back across, and it's me and Danny Cowgill, Manny Wellington, and we're working the USA football thing. And at the time, like I have 2 job offers. I can go to St. Augustine and join Coach Wild's staff, or I can go to Ponte Vedra with Coach Lloyd. Manny at the time was with Coach Lloyd in Ponte Vedra. And I'm not going to lie, like I was really, really intrigued about going to join Coach Wild's staff. I mean, they've got Brian Braddock. They've got super knowledgeable coaches. It's different, and I'm going to learn a lot because there's different ways to do things. And I think the difference and all that stuff sounded really, really intriguing to me. We looked at houses, living in the St. Augustine area, close to the beach. Like Kaylee was down. She's like, that's what I want to do. And it felt wrong. Like it felt wrong.
Was it the niece thing that made it feel wrong?
Oh yeah. I don't know that they ever would have accepted me. Like I think we'd have been in the meeting rooms and we'd have gone through stuff and they'd have been like, you guys cheated on that fake punt, right? Like it never would have went away. Like it felt wrong. It felt odd. I have all the respect in the world. Like those are the greatest coaches. Like iron sharpens iron, not just respect for them, but like what they made me. 1000%. But
and we've had Brian and Joey on the show, and I can tell you the same way. One, you're right; they would not have accepted but they do respect you guys as well, especially the rivalry that y'all had.
Oh, it was awesome, and it made me a better coach. But it felt wrong. It felt wrong, and I don't know that I.
And Manny's your guy, right?
Yes, yeah, and Manny's my guy, and so Manny's my guy, and so we ended up going leaving college football and going to Ponte Vedra.
Right. And then Coach Lloyd was out, was it 1 or 2 years?
1 year.
1 year. And then the opportunity came for you to be the head coach again locally.
And so, I think that's, Manny says living right. Just keep living right, and things will happen. And Coach Lloyd got an opportunity to go back to Oklahoma.
Right.
And unfortunately, like we were in a situation where the current principal, Speziali, was dealing with terminal cancer.
Oh.
And I think like he just wanted it. Like, look, I want it off my plate. I don't want to deal with this.
Was
right
Gene
now.
the AD at that point?
No, Gene had left.
Okay.
And so I think Spez made me the interim, and then left campus and never came back. And so I think I'm thankful for the opportunity there, but I did kind of back into that.
In fairness, not much head coaching experience, but very successful where you were, and then you leave to be a DC in college. So you had a good resume.
Right.
It wasn't
and
like
won a national championship in college. It's a
Right.
DC, so.
So yeah.
Yeah,
So
it wasn't like you completely.
could have
You
backed
just happened
in,
to be
but-
lucky to be there.
Yes, sir.
But you could have gotten the job regardless.
If you would have gone to St. Augustine, you wouldn't have got that job.
Probably not.
Right,
Probably
that's a
not.
great
So
way to put it.
everything
Probably not.
happens
Correct.
the way it's supposed to
Kind of,
happen.
yes, exactly. And that's what I meant by because you're right. If I'm at St. Augustine, there's no interim. Someone else is the interim, and they become the head coach, and how it worked out.
You took Manny's shot.
I did. I did.
And now you drag him everywhere you go.
Well, I know, and I think that's drag them everywhere we go. But I think that goes back to what we talk about. Like, there's things that just feel right, and so the guys that came up with me, or through Craig, Coach Howard, like there's a way the program in their eyes is supposed to be, and like it just feels right.
Yeah, well,
Right.
I mean,
It's easy.
I kept guys on my staff. I left Jackson, went to Atlantic Coast, and 6 of them came with me. You know what I mean? Because they all knew how to. It's easier. Transition's easier. Everything's easier.
Yeah, and Manny is obviously a special situation because we coach defense together, and so he's and so it's funny because we think a lot of the same ways, but you've been on staffs and we want to let our coaches coach, and I'm the head coach in the room, and we go through, and there's times where we're game planning something, and there's something I want, and he goes like, that's fine, like we can install it, like I'm not calling it,
Right.
like you're gonna have to come on the headsets and make me call that, and I'm like, well, we're doing it, and so and so we have a really good thing going. There's a lot of guys that love and trust each other, and that's ultimately what you want. Is there's no hurt feelings.
Right.
Like we're all friends. There's no hurt feelings. You could say whatever you want, to each other in the room, and we know how much we love and care about each other, and so like that's why it works, because he can, like, and if you say a dumb idea, you're going to be told like,
Right.
well, that's stupid. Why would we do that?
Right.
And like, you don't have to worry about like, then your job is to bounce back and be like, yeah, you're right, my bad. Like, and then we keep moving.
So you take over at Ponte Vedra,
Yeah.
right? Pretty good success early on. I mean, that had to feel like a job where you felt like, I'm here. I'm gonna be here a long time.
Yeah, and had no intention of ever leaving.
Right.
I mean, that place was super special to me for multiple reasons, and part of it is like, look, I got married there. Like I got married. They came in and gave money, like raised money as the parents, and gave us money to go out on our honeymoon together. Like I had my first child there. Like
Right.
they had a what do they call when they all put
Shower.
diapers? We had a baby shower.
shower.
Yeah, we had a baby shower. And they came in and they were, and like there were so many people that were instrumental to those like really special parts of my life.
Right.
The community was super open. My kids knew everyone there. Like everyone, it wasn't just about the ball. It was about my family being in.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, it turned into Kaylee was like, "Look, we're too involved. Like, we need to move out of Ponte Vedra. Like, we had a little condo, like right there. We go to Publix, and it's, hey, Coach Sullivan. And Kayla's like, "Look, this is too small town for me. Like, I need." And so we moved a little bit further away. But for my family, it was an amazing, amazing experience. And then from a ball perspective, like it was the perfect fit. Like it was the perfect fit from a group and a community that was open to the message that we were sharing, like being the best version of yourself and caring more about being a great teammate than being a great player.
How different was that job versus the Clay job? Two questions with that, right? Just the community, different types of schools, but also single 30-year-old guy now married with a kid guy.
Yeah, and I think that's
The bigger difference.
That's a huge part of it because so Coach Howard has a saying, and I steal all of his sayings, like all of them. And so he has a saying that our parents are trusting us with their most prized possessions, and we need to make sure that we are living up to that trust. Okay? And so we'd say your most prized possessions. I'd say it all the time, and I'm 30 years old, no kids. Your most prized possessions, like, might as well be a car. Like I don't understand what that means. I have no idea what that means. I thought I did.
Right.
No idea what that means. And then I have kids, and now I go like, now I know
now
what
I
you mean.
get it.
Now I know what you mean.
Right.
And so I've grown up a lot in terms of the way that we, again, the way that you view that interaction, the relationships, and how important it is that you can play in kids' lives, and what that really means, and really what parents are asking of us. And I think the world has changed. The world has changed, but I think those years at Ponte Vedra, like the what we were selling was it really important at that time period.
Right.
And that being a great teammate and being a part of something bigger to yourself, and like the message, I think it was super impactful. A lot of kids really buying in to something special.
And it was a lot different from what Coach Lloyd had as well, right? I mean, Coach Lloyd was a real great guy, good coach, old school, Oklahoma guy coming into the beach community was not as accepted, would you say?
I mean, I don't know. I think ultimately, the Coach Lloyd was a college coach. Where
Correct.
when we talked about when I was in college, like the focus is on winning.
Right.
It's not about like the impact you can have on kids' lives. It's just not. It's just not. They're 22 years old. They're like, Coach, like all I want to do is win ball games. Like, I am who I am now. And so I think the emphasis was probably more on winning. I think he's a good guy, but I think ultimately the focus was more on winning. And I think a lot of programs the focus is on winning, which is fine. I'm not saying I'm right or they're wrong. It's
Right.
And so we are more touchy-feely, like we are. Like the journey's important.
Right.
And I think, again, like that time period. Now I will say this, like that's an acquired taste. Year one was not good. Year one was not good. I mean, I think we went 2-8, because like the message was not received. The message was not received. Nope, that's not what I want. And so there was like sometimes you gotta kind of go through and grow it, and that I think it took off year 2, year 3, and obviously we did better and better. But I think it was different. It was a different message, and I think, but it is still about timing,
right?
And kids, and I was super fortunate to be around a group of kids and parents that's what they want to do. And ultimately, it's not all of them. Let's be honest, it's not all of them. It's the leaders, because they ultimately set, hey, we're doing this. We're doing this.
Right.
And I had Nick Tarani, and I had Hal Swan, and I had Marshall Few, and I had Noah Salon, and they were like, we're doing this. We're doing this. And ultimately, it was Nick. And I've told him this. Ultimately, it was Nick. We get ready to go play. I don't know if chronological order, but we're getting ready to go play American Heritage, and they've got Patrick Surtain, Tyson Campbell, at corner. This is one of the most talented teams in the history of high school football. They're going to have 6 first-round draft picks. And, Nick says, we're going to beat them. And everyone's like, well, if Nick says we're beating them, then we're beating them. Nick says we're doing it. And just the way, the leadership and the kind of way he was, but our coaches being able to empower him, and the kids around him trusting in him, and then rising. It was an unbelievable group who believed in each other, and they were the scrappy Sharks, and of that senior class, 90% of them played Little League together. It is the ultimate, when you groups like that, at that time, it was awesome.
That's how. We talked about some of the other programs. That's how you wish it was still everywhere.
It's not.
You know what I mean? No, we know that.
The world's changed. It's not the same.
Right.
Well, and at that time, you talking about Little League, right? You had probably the best youth football organization in the area, because that's where all the NFL guys were retiring.
Right.
All the NFL guys, Fordham, all those guys were retiring in Ponte Vedra, and they were all running to Pop Warner. Yeah. You could coach against a team that had 6 NFL guys on the sideline, and those were building that culture, teaching them the fundamentals, and by the time they got to you, it was just fine-tune them.
Yeah.
Get them ready.
It was. And it was a combination of a lot of special people. And Todd, you mentioned Todd Fordham playing a role, and obviously he's continued with us now at Bolles. But it was a special group of selfless kids, and that super lucky. And I think that when you talk about all the lessons learned along the way, I think I'm still learning ball, and I'm still learning how to deal with kids, and kids have changed, so you got to continue to evolve. But I do think when you talk about hey, now I'm really ready. I wasn't ready yet.
Right.
I wasn't ready yet. But when we got there, and I had kind of fine-tuned, learned from enough people along the way, where we got to look, this is who we are.
Right.
A good run, state championship run, come back, couple good seasons. Kids are growing, established, married now, and then you get the phone call from, Corky had been gone, had retired. Wayne was, the obvious choice, stepping in. Corky Jr. stepping in. Now he's retiring, and board's like, all right, now we're going outside the family. We're going a different direction. And I know for a fact you were the first call, because I was begging them not to call you at the time. So have you ever heard that story?
No. I'd like to hear.
Well, I can say it now because we've become really good friends. He's at Ponte Vedra. We've had Ponte Vedra since day one.
Right.
This joker switches them from Baker's to our competitor because he had to have Nike at the time. So there was one big Bolles guy that was anti-Toblin at first. Now, greatest I was wrong. I admit I was wrong on air. So, all right, so back to the question. So now they call, had to be a hard decision.
No, it was. And I think, super envious to be in the situation where you get to go through a process and basically tell them, look, I really like my job.
Right. I don't need it.
I really like my job, and I'm only going to consider this if you are serious about building the kind of program that I want to be a part of. And that there were a lot of people involved in the process, and that, look, if ultimately, you want to be a part of something where being the best version of yourself, there is a pursuing excellence, and excellence doesn't mean winning championships. It means we are everything that we do in every aspect of our lives. We are making a conscious choice to try to be the best I can be at whatever it is I'm doing, whether it's school, academics, athletics, whatever it is. And that everywhere we've been, we feel like we've been able to build that culture within the football program. At Bolles, it's in the DNA. It's everywhere, because you're making a conscious choice. Look, I want to be a part of it, and you're going to get pushed everywhere. There's no choosing, hey, I'm here for football and I'm not here for academics.
Right.
No, you're not. No, you're not. And so, and it's every sport. It's robotics. It's everything. And everyone there thinks their thing is the biggest, most important thing. Like the football program is like a sideshow that distracts us from the,
Swimming,
from whatever it is that we
Mhm.
need to, whatever it is that's going on there. And it's everywhere. And it's awesome because when you talk about like the goal, the reason to consider it is that ultimately culture is this kind of a stream that's pushing you in a direction. And you want to surround yourself with programs and people that are committed to the same thing you are, or you're swimming upstream. And that other places we've been, like where we're fighting against the idea of mediocrity, the idea of watering it down, the idea of like we're not committed to excellence. And that so the reason to consider Bolles is because it aligns with everything that we've believed in. It's Craig Howard's philosophy. Like this is what we want to be a part of. This is it.
Right.
And so in meeting with them, it became clear that not only is this an unbelievable opportunity for myself as a coach, but like for my kids.
That's what I was going to ask.
For my kids. Like, and I tell anyone who listen, like, and I don't know, my parents want me to say this part, but like, I grew up 15 minutes from Bolles, but 1,000,000 miles away.
Right.
I academically, like, oh, that's not me. And financially, like we went up and down like my dad, but there was a time where we were on free and reduced lunch, and there was a time where we did really well. Right. But like Bolles was not on my radar. Now, a lot of my middle school teammates, it was Sam Matthews, Tommy Hilliard, like Ralph Townsend, like a lot of those guys.
The ones where they were destined to be players, not coaches.
A lot of those guys, it was on the radar, but it wasn't on my radar. Nobody's coming to me asking me, "Hey, you should think about Bolles."
Right.
So it'd be, and Mandarin was awesome, for my experience. But I grew up like that, and the idea of my kids getting to go to school there and be a part of that culture and be surrounded by kids who believe, and families who believe the same things that I believe about education and pursuing excellence and what we want and the values. And so it's been awesome. It's been awesome. It was a really hard decision to make because I loved PV and that, again, the impact that it had on my family and life at the time, but I could not pass up the opportunity to pursue what Bolles could be.
Was there a concern coming after Corky and Wayne and that, the tradition that they built and the fact that, you and I've talked about this many times off the air, that you can't do what Corky did. It can't be duplicated because the rules don't allow it to be duplicated.
Oh, it's not just that. I'm not him. Like,
Correct.
I'm not him. Like, everyone will tell stories. Like, and I believe he did this to me. Corky Rogers you could go there 4 years. He doesn't know your name. I'm not saying he didn't, but he doesn't have to.
Right.
And he could dog cuss you for a year. And one time he says, he doesn't even call you by your name. He says, hey buddy, come here. That was a good job. And you'd be like, oh, he acknowledged me. Like, that's all I needed.
Right.
That's all I needed.
Talked about George Smith.
That's all. That he had that magic, that charisma.
Right.
That's all now he knew who people were. And and even as an assistant coach, like we would go there. That was a rite of passage. Like your season ends, Bolles is still practicing.
You go
to Bolles' practice. And at one point, Coach Rogers came over and he goes, I know who you are. And I go, oh my God.
Right.
Like, he knows who I am. Like, that's it.
The kids truly played for him.
Oh, yes. No, he was. And I don't have that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that. And kids have changed and it gets harder to do. And so, but I would say that number one is like, look, I'm not Coach Rogers. I couldn't do what he did. Number two is, and I think, look, I'm not the smartest and I'm not the prettiest and I'm not the, like, but my one superpower is I know who I am, and I know that my job in life is not to make other people happy or care what they think. Like, I am a sociopath when it comes to that. And that if I did care what other people thought, I would have, you can't go to Bolles.
Can't take that job.
No, you can't.
No.
Because nothing you do is right.
Right.
I mean, nothing you do is right. I mean, so people will ask me and be like, hey, how's it going? It's like, oh, well, Final Four, 6 years in a row. And they'll be like, keep your head up, coach. Like, you'll win one eventually. Like, you'll get one up. Like, you'll get a football. You'll get a big ball. You'll get a big football because there's big footballs and then there's little footballs.
Right.
And runner-up gets you a little football. And like runner-up is not doing it.
No, don't want little footballs.
No, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Keep your head up. Like, you'll get a big football eventually. And so like and that even Nick Saban talks about at some point in success starts to become like this overwhelming pressure of, because they've got to keep up with doing what you're doing, and that ultimately it comes down. I could not have taken this job at 30. I would have quit.
Oh, no.
But now understanding, hey, look, we're going to do everything we can to win, and I want to win. No one's ever accused me of not wanting to win.
Right.
But understanding, look, I'm not Coach Rogers, and I can't do what he did, and they hired me to be me, and I'm going to be me, and when that's not good enough, they'll fire me, and I'll go somewhere else, and that's okay. But ultimately, like building the program that where we love and care about kids, and building a staff that is going to have this impact on kids, where they're going to come back and speak to the program and be ambassadors, and we can be super proud of the men that they've become, and along the way, we're gonna win a lot of ball games, and ultimately, that's what allows you to do it. If I really was worried about comparing myself to Coach Rogers, that would have been a dumb job to take.
Yeah.
And I tell anyone, like, look, Coach Rogers was the best. Like, and that's not, I'm not speaking outside of my mouth. Like, I will tell you 100%, like, Coach Rogers was the best. Like, he was the best. And I am okay being number 2. I'm not, that will be a happy place.
Right.
Well, you've had a lot of success there early on, right? You talk about 6 Final Fours, 2 state, years 1 and 2 in the state championship game against, just bad draws, tough opponents. And being in the classifications that you've been with, you're facing all the big boys from South Florida. The inner city Miami public school powerhouses, as well as the Cardinal Gibbons and Tampa Jesuits and all, or Berkeley Preps and all those guys. So it hasn't been easy. What's next for you? What's next for the Bolles program?
So, I think ultimately, like, we continue to be true to who we are, that like we are a team that's going to compete for state championships every single year that we go out there. So we're going to be a team that is going to be filled with kids who want to be great teammates first, that are pursuing the best version of themselves. And like, that's our template, that if kids don't fit, then they don't fit. And there's other places for them, and that's fine. And that they got to want to be committed to excellence in all aspects of life, academics and athletics. And so we're going to continue to refine that. Now, the what we need to do a better job of, and what we need to grow on, is making sure that we are like, make people understand like kind of what we do and who we are, and that continue to attract kids who fit the mission, and believe in that. I think that ultimately it's going to be like, the landscape is changing. What's going to happen? How is NIL going to affect this? How is the new classifications? How is all this going to change? I think ultimately, and I know I sound repetitive or cop out, but like, look, we're going to keep being who we are.
Right.
And the day that that's not good enough, like, I'll go somewhere else where I get to be who I am, because that's who we're going to be. That's the way that's what's important. And that's the only reason that's what gets me job and keeps me sane, having an impact. And it sounds weird, but double down on it.
Well, one thing, I think you're unique, though, because you still teach the AP stuff. And so I think that gives you a whole nother realm of student body that you may not get to interact with. And I think they all see you in a different light, too. And I think that really helps you. I really do.
I do. I enjoy teaching AP psychology, and that, I kid with the kids, the students all the time about how, like, look, this is the most important class you're ever going to take, because it is, you're going to use it every day. Like, I don't know that you're going to use AP Stat. Like, maybe you go in a field where you are. I don't know if you can use AP Bio, but like, understanding yourself and understanding interactions with others and how other people work and how we think, it is an unbelievable class. And we get to talk about grief process. We get to talk about relationships. We get to talk about drugs, alcohol. Like, we get to talk about things.
Right.
And ultimately, that's why I coach. Like, it gives me, Coach Howard shared with us one time, there's a speaker who goes through and says, like, look, they did a study on, they gave random tasks, and they said, hey, if your blank asked you to do it, would you do it? Yes or no? And that the role who got the top yes responses was coach. My coach asked me to do it, I would do it. My parent did, probably not. Teacher did, but if my coach asked me to do it, and you've coached long enough, how many times have parents come to you and said, well, they won't listen to me, but if you tell them, they'll do it.
Yeah.
And so, like, that responsibility, like, and because it's not a privilege, that responsibility, like, we need to make sure that we're using.
Right. Part of the village.
Yeah.
Part of the village,
and getting to run the character classes. Like, we win so they'll listen to me. Like, if we're losing, like, well, this guy don't know what he's talking about. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But we win so we get to, they listen. And so we get to run the character classes. We get to have an impact on kids that don't play football through AP psychology. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. It's not whether or not they pass the AP test. whether or not afterwards, like they come back and they go like, hey, when you that lesson on depression, when you talked about what's going on in the brain, like I do that. And so like the opportunity to have an impact on kids' lives, like post them leaving, like that's what it's about.
Well, we're running out of time here, so we've got a question we ask all our guests at the end, so hit that. Before I do, I just want to tell you I appreciate what you've done for my sons. I think you do an excellent job. I don't think anyone does a better parent meeting, organization-wise, in the program, and then the post-game stuff that you do for the kids is awesome. I think you do a great job with that stuff. I feel like we could do a whole nother segment on just the Bolles time frame. I kind of skimmed over that. But we can't let you go without asking you a question. One piece of advice that current Coach Toblin would give first-year Coach Toblin.
Everybody's got this question. So.
Everybody's got this
Everybody's
question.
got it.
I feel like I've talked about that a lot. And I think specifically to coaching, would be that, like, don't forget the mission. Like don't forget the mission. I think, like, obviously I didn't leave the profession, but I was close.
Right.
Like I'd filled out applications for grad school. Like I was close. And that, like, keeping your mind, and again, like the most miserable years I've had in coaching is when I forget the mission, where we make winning the most important thing. And so it would be not to forget the mission, and it would be to take the SOU job because you're going to meet. Like, don't mess that one up. Don't mess that one
By
up.
far the best athlete in the family, by the way, Coach.
Yeah. Yo, ridiculous.
Coach, we appreciate you. Thanks for joining us on After the Game. Hope you have a great season.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Good time.